Welcome, welcome everyone. Welcome Raymond. Welcome to our fifth workshop. This is our fifth weekly workshop that usually happens every weekend on Saturdays. So throughout the week, we as UX chefs we usually prepare information regarding user experience design and UI design, web design, together with encouraging people to think UX so that they can start designing products that are usable and that actually serve humanity as a whole. So I want to welcome you all to this weekly workshop. And first and foremost, I would want to take you through our agenda. So we shall introduce ourselves. I'll introduce myself. Then I'll tell you about the UX Chefs. I'll tell you about the UX Chefs Weekly Buffet. I'll tell you about the UX Chefs Weekly Workshop. Then you'll introduce yourselves, and then we shall, continue. And I'll tell you about the hashtags that we have under UX Chefs, and I'll tell you about the UX word. I'll tell you about the UX tones. I'll tell you about the article that we wrote, over the past week. So then I'll also tell you about the book of the week, and then I'll also tell you about, what Figma is. I'll give you an introduction to Figma as, the best tool right now, for designing, your digital user interfaces, be it for the web, for the phone, for the watch, for the car dashboard, it anything. You can actually use Figma to actually design your user interfaces. So after I've taken you through, what Figma is, I'll entertain questions, and then I'll let you know of our social media platforms, and then you can actually follow us. So in this session, we shall just introduce ourselves, then I'll take you through the hashtags, and then we shall join in for another session, and then I'll take you through these other items. So starting off, I want to tell you about the UX Chefs. The UX Chefs is a group of passionate designers, creatives, because I believe everyone is a creative. For as long as you wake up from your bed and do something, I'm sure you do it, creatively. So that means you sort of like think of it first, and then put some creative, thoughts, think about it. You imagine how you can actually do that specific thing, and to actually, put a frame around this. Some people do that creatively, and others do not. So I believe that you can actually start, making things creative through thinking UX and getting to think about humanity, people. Under the UX Chefs, we do have creatives. We have graphic designers. We have web designers. We have UX designers. We have artists. We also have some software engineers within the community. So we do have all these creatives, and we do consult them and use their knowledge to solve design related problems. And we make sure that these problems are business oriented, because I'm sure if you're not just if you're not solving a business problem, then you're not serving society in the right way. So the UX Chefs is just a group that is based in Kampala, Uganda, and we do come together and then share knowledge, share information, and then craft illustrations, vectors, and then we make sure that this information that we're putting out there is sort of like being brought out in a creative manner, because we creatives usually want to consume information that is brought out in a creative manner. So that's why we also have the UX tones, and then we also have the UX Chefs weekly article, within which we actually explain all this information that we usually put out. So, as Rogers Mukaaya, I'm the founder of the UX Chefs, and I believe that with time, people will come together and then realize the cause of this group and then continue supporting it and then continue, giving us all these information so that we can put it together and then publish it so that people can actually get to know about UX. So that is the other reason as to why the UX Chefs was actually formed. So the UX Chefs is also are here to actually inform designers, to preach to them about UX and design in general. I realized that people can actually design, but thinking UX is actually a challenge. People do not want to think about the impact or even the causes, the effect of the type of work that they're doing. What kind of effect does it have on humanity? And how can you actually start considering the people that actually use the kind of products that you design? So the UX Chefs is here to help you start your journey as first and foremost a designer, and then also help those out there in the field to start thinking UX. So that is the other reason as to why the UX Chefs actually exists. So moving on, this is actually our third issue of the UX Chefs weekly buffet. So what happens is we put together this information and then we create sort of like a newsletter, and then we actually publish that newsletter every Saturday. And the good news is that whoever actually attends this workshop gets the information within that buffet explained to them, and then they can actually get to ask questions in the group, and then those questions can actually get answered. So the main reason as to why I'm here to actually host this workshop is to actually go through the UX Chefs weekly buffet that happens every Saturday. So every Saturday, I just go through the weekly buffet, and that weekly buffet has all the information that we put together that has to do with user experience design throughout the week. So moving forward, you will find out that I've so far created 4 issues of the UX Chefs weekly buffet, and we shall be able to create more, issues with time. So just stay tuned so that you do not miss anything that has to do with the UX Chefs. So these are the hashtags that you missed. I'm going to be taking you through these hashtags, and then we shall jump off and then join in for another session. So the hashtags that we actually created, I've been taking people through these hashtags every time we meet, which is actually a very important thing, because you can actually follow up on these hashtags wherever you are. The first hashtag is the UX Tunes, and the UX Tunes is a conversational way of learning about user experience design. We create sort of like illustrations, and then we also create dialogues around those illustrations. User experience dialogues, conversations that usually happen in a designer's life that go without being captured or being noticed. So as UX chefs, we realize that we can actually capture these conversations, and then we create beautiful information, beautiful graphics, and then we make sure that we make people that are interested in user experience design aware of the things that actually take place in our user experience design, the terminologies, how you can start, the controversies, the trends, what you can do to improve, and most importantly, to start taking UX, which is the most important thing, because once you start taking UX, then that means you can actually start designing better products. So, look out for this hashtag. You can search for it on Twitter and LinkedIn, and we create information every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday around this specific hashtag. So the next hashtag is the UX word, and this is the user experience word of the day. For the user experience word of the day, this is just a word that I usually pick from a list I created, and we as UX chef usually add on to this list. So there's a list of 300 words, that have been used continuously to actually define and describe what user experience is. So I just select one word every Tuesday and Thursday, and then I write something about that word to make sure that you actually get to know what user experience is and get to design better usable products. The last hashtag before we actually join in for our second session is the UX Chef's Weekly Buffet. And for this hashtag, this is just a hashtag that was coined around the user experience, sort of like newsletter that we put, that we actually put up every Saturday. So the UX Chef's Weekly Buffet is just a newsletter that has all the meals that we'll be preparing as UX chefs. So let's jump off and then you can actually join in for another session. So the UX word is just a way of explaining, what user experience is. But these explanations are not like book or dictionary explanations. They are explanations that we coin, from the experience that we've gotten as user experience. After practicing these, specific sort of like way of coining products around users, we realize that we can use words that have been used by experts, agencies, and people that have been interested in user experience over the time. So we get those words and then we write something around them and then we make people understand them better. So today's word is, the first word is actually using, and then the second word is actually serves. So taking us with the first word, you realize that in this word, using, it was just a continuation of a specific sort of like word I actually wrote about. You can actually go and read about these specific words on my LinkedIn page. But regardless, you realize that for this word using, you have to first of all get to realize that usually you have to first and foremost get to know that you have to realize that people usually have to first of all use what you're actually working on to get to know the kind of experience they will actually get. So before someone actually uses, then they cannot actually tell the type of feeling they're actually getting. So as designers, as creatives, think about this. You cannot actually tell the kind of emotion, whether good or bad, that you're getting from something before coming into contact or interacting with it. So that is what this word was actually about. You have to get to know it, that you have to come up with iterable sort of like things that people can use. For example, when you're designing something, for example, you could be designing a future. You can make sure that you come up with results that someone can actually look at and then they give you feedback immediately without you having to actually come into conclusion for your own self, like saying this will actually work for all the team members or even for the product itself. So you have to make sure that for people to actually tell you the kind of experience you're actually constructing, you have to first of all enable them to use. There has to be that sort of like practice or action of using so that people can actually tell what type of feeling, what type of experience have you actually come up with. So as designers, always come up with things that can be used, be it a sketch, be it anything simple that someone can actually use so that they can actually tell the kind of experience you've so far come up with in the process. So as designers, I encourage you to always come up with something that someone can actually give you feedback on, because we as designers usually work on feedback. Like we work depending on feedback. Why? Because you cannot start, doing something for yourself. Yet others are going to use it. Yet others have to analyze it, then make requirements for it, and then develop it, and then others have to actually market it. So that means that always come up with something real quick that you can use to show others that you are actually coming up with a specific type of experience that others have to actually consume. So that was what this pod was actually about. You can actually visit my profile, and then you can actually read more about that specific word. So the next word is actually serves. Let me just visit that word. So for serves, you have to make sure that what you're designing, has it sort of like serves something, or has sort of like a purpose. But before that, you have to make sure that you truly understand that user experiences are meant to serve. Before you actually do something to actually serve a purpose or to come up with something useful, you have to realize that we designers, or we people within this world, we the human race, are here to serve. And once you realize that you're here to serve, you can actually think of better ways to serve. You can think of better ways to actually construct better user experiences after realizing that you're here to serve. And you're here to serve in a better way. Not just serving. Some people actually just serve. Some people just work, some people just design, but you shouldn't just do something. You should make sure that you serve people with experiences that will enhance their lives. But before you do that, you have to realize that you as a human being, you're here to serve others and to serve them in a very good way. So that is where the user experience bit comes in. That the experiences you construct or build have to, add on to someone's life. Yes, we usually pay for products, but good products usually add something onto our lives, and that is why we continuously use them. So as a designer, think of it. You, as a human being, you're here to serve others. And once you actually get to realize that, you can move on to the next step of realizing, how can I serve? And then after that, how can I serve better? Because you cannot just do things without realizing that you're here to serve. So I urge you to actually pick up that mentality of, I'm here to serve others because others actually serve me, and that is how the world actually works. We are here to serve others as they serve us, and we're here to realize that as designers, we need to build these experiences that can serve better and make their lives actually improve, so that we can actually live in a better world. That is the main role or the main essence of user experience design, to make sure that we come up with experiences that are consumable, first of all, enjoyable, and add on to our lives. That's it. So that is what this part was all about. So moving on, I would want to take you through, the next area, which is, what you missed under the UX tunes. So what you missed under the UX tunes is, first and foremost, episode 14. So for episode 14, you realize that, John is now, at the office, and sort of like collaborating with others, because we usually collaborate here and there. So what you have to first of all get to understand is that usually, our colleagues usually give us, requests on the fly, like, John, do me this, like they can give you requests over and over. And I realized that in this situation, John was actually given a request. So John was told by one of his colleagues that I need to to change the color of these buttons. And then another colleague just tells him that you need to actually check out one of the components. All the components is actually distorted. So you realize that we designers usually get these requests and usually ask ourselves, where can I really start from? How can I actually handle all these requests that are coming in? How can I actually operate with all these requests coming in from maybe the engineering team, the sales team, the marketing team, the executives, the team leads? They usually give us all these requests. And as a designer, you can ask yourself, where can I start from? What can I do? So you need to first and foremost prioritize, because life is all about prioritizing. So in this episode, we were trying to actually let you know that you need to start prioritizing. And to give an example of myself, I usually prioritize things like real quick. Once I'm given a request, I usually figure out where did this request come from, where is the conversation for this request, and where is it attached to? Is there anything that is required before this request is actually accomplished? So you have to ask all those questions, and then you need to find out, which is actually more important. Find out from your team leads, like, what is actually more important. Is it doing some user research first and foremost? Is it coming up with some rough sketches? Is it coming up with high fidelity designs? Because yes, today you can come up with high fidelity designs. It doesn't need you to actually, first of all, sketch, wireframe, come up with all these processes. You can actually come up with high fidelity outputs in terms of design without following the entire process. That doesn't mean that you shouldn't follow the process. That means that you should realize that the process is there and then rely on it to come up with anything that you want. So in this episode, we're just trying to remind you that always prioritize what you're doing, so that you can actually get all these requests that usually come in on the fly. To get, you can actually accomplish them quite faster. So moving on to episode 15. Now for episode 15, you realize that let's just go there. For episode 15, we actually, came up with sort of like a scenario where John was actually experiencing products that sort of like have a good user experience. Because yes, they are struggling products, but of course, they are products that have actually built good user experiences. Because you cannot actually just start trashing every product. You have to give credit where it belongs. So John, in this instance, was actually using WhatsApp, and we all know that WhatsApp is actually a very good interface in terms of communication, and the ease with which you can actually send a message, and then someone actually receives it there, and then they reply, and then all these statuses of how far has the message gone, have they read it, have they ignored it. So you realize that WhatsApp is actually a seamless platform, so everything feels good and easy once you actually using it. So in this instance, John was actually using WhatsApp, and he's like, oh, WhatsApp really feels good. And just to run a bit, was actually in his sitting room, was at home. So he was actually cooking some water, and then the kettle actually snapped. So once the kettle snaps, that means the water that was actually boiling is now ready. So what happens is John now comes to actually get the water, maybe to actually make a cup of tea, or to come up with I don't know, porridge, anything you can actually use hot water for. But as John actually interacts with this kettle, remember, he's from actually consuming a very good user experience on WhatsApp. But once the water gets ready, and they actually reach out for that specific water in the kettle, they actually realize I think something weird with the specific kettle, because once you're coming from a very um, from a place where you've been consuming a very good user experience, and then you actually get into a place where the user experience is not that bad, but anyway, it's actually lacking to you because people are actually different. So why not? Someone can actually, experience a very good user experience here, and then they can also actually, go ahead and actually experience a poor, user experience from another product. So in this instance, John wonders like, why does this kettle have a very short cable? Because he was actually enjoying, what's up on his couch. Now he actually has to move from his couch all the way to to the kitchen to actually pick up the kettle to actually get the hot water. So it's like, why don't they actually make adjustable cables so that someone doesn't have to actually leave their couch? So I think you can see, like, in this episode, we're trying to actually show you that user experiences can actually stretch into so many products. And, once someone actually consumes a very good user experience from one product, they usually want to actually consume, a similar experience from another product. So this shows you that experiences usually filtrate through products, and we do not actually realize that we find ourselves demanding for more, but from a sort of like background of using better products or consuming better services. So we find ourselves asking for more, like, why don't I get more from what I'm actually consuming? So you realize there is or is that demand for more after consuming something better somewhere else. So that was what this episode was all about. It was just showing you that as a designer who's designing user experiences, you find yourself, consuming an experience somewhere and then consuming an experience somewhere else that actually differs. And then you complain of that experience that you consumed that wasn't good, but forgetting that the reason as to why you're complaining is because you consumed a better experience somewhere else. So as designers, this shows us that it is actually good to come up with very good user experiences in whatever situation, circumstance, or product you're actually coming up with. So that was what this specific episode was all about. Moving on to the next episode, which was episode 16. For episode 16, episode 16 was all about design tools. Remember, I'm going to be taking you through Figma. I'm going to be giving you a very simple introduction, and then I'll be giving you a file that you can actually take home, interact with, and then you can see, how to use these specific tools. I'm going to be taking you through. So this episode 16, was about design tools. So John, I think, wakes up like on a Monday, and then they're like, which design tool can I use today? Because right about now, like today, we have hundreds of design tools on the market, and some have, I don't know, but you find that some are actually used by internal teams, and they are not actually released. But I realized that after some time, they also released, and then they also actually add on to the number of tools out there. And there are more tools coming. People are actually working on tools. As I speak, someone is actually working on a design tool that is actually going to, overtake design tool A or B or C. So John asks themselves, which design tool can I actually use today? So as they're actually asking themselves, which design tool, their manager comes in and then they remind them that, John, you have a meeting. We have a design meeting in a few minutes. How far with the design? Remember, John is actually still negotiating with himself, because we designers usually want to sort of like change things here and there. Because we are visual people. Because as a visual person, usually wants to see, something different, to try out a different tool, to actually see how you can actually work or perform with that specific tool. So John's manager asks him, how far And then John tells them, I'm still busy. Can't we reschedule? But John's business is, it's just all about selecting a design tool. Which design tool can I actually go for so that I can actually execute this specific piece of work? So John is now puzzled, confused, eagerly waiting, eagerly trying out, eagerly selecting, eagerly trying to visualize which tool. But then realize that the other team members usually work with the stakeholders, the developers, the people who work, in other departments, like maybe the IT, people that do sales, marketing. These people don't usually want to get to know a lot about the tools we use as designers because it won't help them because they cannot go into those tools and then tweak around our work because that would actually mean that we are no longer that useful on the project or in on any piece of work that we're actually doing. So you realize that designers have to always think about the type of work they are actually going to do rather than the type of tool they're actually going to use. There's a saying that you need to sharpen the tool, the axe thrice, then you cut once. This doesn't mean that you're going to be sharpening the axe. No. I think the translation of that specific proverb it's just to show you that you need to think of what you're going to do and how you're going to do it first before you do it. So that once you do it, it doesn't give you like a lot of difficulty. You just have to execute one. So designers stop over checking out which new tool came out yesterday, which new tool is coming out next week, which new tool is coming out next year, but rather focus on the kind of problems you're solving, and most importantly, the kind of solutions you're coming up with. Because today there are so many solutions that are solving no problem, and yet there's so many problems. So you realize that as designers, always remember that other people don't care about the kind of tools you use, and you realize that actually brings us to the article of the week. No one cares about the type of design tool you are using. No one. I've worked in a couple of teams that no one actually asked me which tools do you use. How did you come up with this? Which tools do you use? No, but they were usually wowed by what I had designed, and they usually appreciate me here and there. Like, Rogers, this was really good, excellent work. Really appreciate. But no one has really ever asked me, how did you do this? How did you tweak this around? How did you? No one. So that means that no one really cares. So that brings us to the article of the week. The article of the week was no one cares about the type of design tool you are using, and this might actually hurt you, but it's a reality, and you just need to actually realize it and accept it and work with it, because the tools we usually use are not even ours. They belong to someone else. So designers, stop attaching yourself to any tools. So let's actually go through this article, which I'll actually move on to this next topic. So usually we designers are so attached to design tools, and we forget that there are so many design tools out there. So since there are so many design tools out there, what does this mean? You shouldn't really care about which design tool you're using, because tomorrow it might be gone and you might be left out if at all you really care about the tool you're using. So as a designer, you should nurture skills like creative thinking, creative problem solving. You should nurture skills like sketching, drawing. You should know color psychology, color theory. You should know the basic elements that are the building blocks of design. You should know the principles of design in general, the principles of UX design, the principles of UI design. And you should basically know the logic around design, and most importantly, you should know how to carry out user research. You should know how people feel, think, and react to different things. So, as a designer, once you get that ideology or that way of thinking, then you can use any tool that comes, that actually you come into contact with. Because let me just give you an example myself. I actually can use a couple of tools, and I'm sure I can use almost all design tools that can be used to come up with two-dimensional work. I'm not too good in three-dimensional work, although I can also do three-dimensional work with using the 2D tool. So because essentially three-dimensionality, it's just all about introducing like that sort of like other angle of depth. So designers always realize that tools are out there. So just realize that there's so many tools and do not get attached to the tool. What do you need to get attached to? You need to get attached to problem solving and focusing on the problem. Because once you focus on the problem, you realize that one, you get to know about the problem itself. Like, why is this problem there? And then two, you get to realize how that problem can be solved. But before even getting to know how, you get to know the information surrounding that specific problem. So by getting to know the information surrounding that specific problem through doing user research, you get to know the tactics, methodologies, techniques that you can use to solve that specific problem. Not all is required at this stage because it's not tools that dictate how problems should be solved. No, if that was the case, then tools would be built first without knowing which problem the tool is actually going to solve. So that shows you that these problems, like problems, have existed even before tools were there. So realize that and focus on the problem. Moving on, the next thing you need to do is your teammates. Actually, this doesn't require you doing. This requires you to realize, understand, and accept the fact that no one really cares, including your teammates. Although they won't tell you. It's me, Rogers, that will always come up with these conversations to always let you know these things. But in reality, no one really cares about anything. Be it your teammates. They'll just see you designing, and all they want are the final output, the designs. So, designers, you should get to know that. That was what this specific article was all about. It was just sort of like trying to explain what I took you through, in this specific episode of the UX Tunes. So, moving on, I want to take you through an introduction to Figma. So I want to give you an introduction to Figma. Figma is, it's, of course, the best UI design tool on the market today as we speak. Today is the 30th of March, 2024. So I believe maybe in 2099, there would be another tool that would be called, I don't know, ABCD, that will be really, 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 really good. And it won't know what Figma was even all about. So that shows you that things keep on changing. At first, we had Adobe We had, uh, you know, we had Photoshop that was used to design websites. But with time, we've been having so many tools in between there, InVision, Adobe XD. But anyway, finally, we have a tool that I think is it's simple, but although currently they're adding on to the list of things you need to learn in order to be able to use this tool effectively. So, as designers, I urge you to, pick interest into using this tool because it's first and foremost simple to use and it's user friendly. It's fast, doesn't lag, and you can do quite a lot. And they also have a free plan that I'm going to be using to actually take you through what Figma is all about. Figma is it's really quite a tool. Yeah, that's what I can say. It's a tool that if at all you're a graphic designer, if at all you've been a photographer that has been working in maybe Photoshop, or if at all you have like any prior knowledge of how to create rectangles online, fill them, resize them, organize them in a way that makes sense. You can actually start using Figma and make your posters in there or any designs that you want that have nothing to do with UI design. So as a designer, I've used Figma to do quite a number of things. For example, UI design. I use it to create posters. I use it to create logos, icons. Realize that you can literally use it for actually a couple of things. For as long as you're not doing like heavy editing. For as long as it's just just simple boxes here and there, because that's what the web is all about. The web, it's just boxes and rectangles, lines, squares, circles. Some people actually put triangles. Speaking of that, let me just bring you to this config website for Figma. The one that like the one that shows you that what these boxes and triangles and rectangles, how they can be expressed and what you can actually do, or just to show you that everything is just just boxes. For example, this button, and you can actually do a lot with rectangles and shapes and all of these things. I believe this was also actually created in Figma because this is Figma's website. It's for the config sort of like conference. So you realize that they use a lot of shapes, which shows you that the web is it's just shapes. And as a designer, one should actually realize that the web is just made of shapes. Shapes here, shapes there. Organize them in a logical way that makes sense. Make sure that those boxes are enjoyable. Don't just throw them there. Don't just put them in a manner that doesn't make sense. Always, just get to know that that is how the web is. And once you actually know how to organize these boxes, realize that you will also try to understand how CSS actually works eventually. And then you'll also learn HTML, JavaScript, and then you can actually continue with your web journey and then web design and all of that. So getting back to our presentation, first thing you need to actually get to know is that Figma is like a pen, because there are so many pens out there, and it's what you do with the pen that actually really matters. Because you can actually throw away this pen and then get another one that is actually different with a different color, and it has all these differences. So this shows you that what you actually use Figma for is what actually really matters, because at the end of the day, what you can do in Figma, you can do in, 30 other tools also. So this shows you that although Figma is a very important tool, it's like a pen. You can, use different pens, but eventually what you actually use them for is what really matters. So keep that at the back of your mind as a designer, that I'm using Figma as a pen to write, but in this instance, I'm just drawing. So what am I actually drawing? Is it actually making sense, or what I'm actually designing to actually, actually make more sense? What am I designing in this instance that is going to help me craft better user experiences? Because at the end of the day, you realize that design is not all about these boxes I showed you here, the rectangles and the circles. Design is all about the experience you get from using a specific product. So poor user experience means the product failed. Like, it has failed to accomplish its specific purpose. Because even if someone actually gets value from a specific product, but it nags them, it makes them feel bad, that means that that product at the end of the day, it will be not usable because of the kind of emotions it triggers within the user. So always get to know that boxes, shapes, rectangles can be created using Figma, but you should do that to aim to trigger a specific feeling. I don't know which type of feeling this website actually triggers, but to me, I feel like this was sort of like a way to show you, what this conference is all about, the values, or what Figma is even all about. So to me, I think this specific animation on this website brings all about excitement. So it brings excitement first and foremost, because for someone to actually buy a ticket to go somewhere, they need to be excited, otherwise they'll actually stay home. So you need to find a way of amusing them, show them that what they're going for is actually going to be good. And I think whoever did this actually managed to achieve that, because this is really an interesting animation. So get to know that Figma is just a tool that you can use to craft things, but you can also use another tool, because Figma is just like a pen. Moving on, the next thing is if you want a link to Figma, it's actually right here. Just go to figma.com, create an account, and then once you create an account, you'll be able to actually create a new file. So what I'm going to do is, for me, I already have like an account with Figma. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a new file that we can use to go through these different areas that I'm actually going to present next. So let me just close this. So the next thing you need to know about Figma, after creating an account and creating a new file, how do you create a new file? Once you create an account, of course, the next thing to do is to be presented with a new file, and then you can actually save that file, and then you can get to do what you want in Figma. But regardless, I'm going to be taking you through these three areas: the nav bar, the sidebar, and then the right menu. So right here, this assumes that I've already created an account with Figma, and I've created a new file. So this file is just called untitled. So we can actually just call it maybe our test file. This can be our test file. So the first area I want to take you through is the nav bar. So the nav bar is just this area, this dark strip here that you're seeing. this that strip that has these tools. For example, this move tool, the one the cursor itself. They also have the scale tool. They have the frame tool, and then they have the selection slice. They have these shape tools, the ones they use to create the animation that you've been seeing. And then they also have like these tools, the pen, text, and then they also have the component section. They have the hand tool for moving things. You just pinch and move. You also have the comment. The comment tool, you can add a comment to your design. I think you can see. Figma is a really good application, so you just need to always get to know that. So on this same nav bar, we also have this area where the name of your file actually appears. So you can actually use this menu to actually do things with your file, like exporting it and then duplicating it, renaming it, moving it to another project, and then these other things like even deleting it. So then at the far end, on the right, we have this area that shows your profile. For example, this is me. And then you can actually also share this file. You can also actually enter dev mode. This is for devs. Once you come up with the design, you can see the underlying HTML, CSS that actually makes up that specific design. So we also have this prototype tool, the one that you can use to prototype. So, or is don't forget that you can use this tool to always present your work. For example, you can actually make a design and then you can actually present it to the stakeholders and then your teammates. Then the last thing on this navbar we have is this area that you can use to actually zoom in within your specific design. So I'm going to be taking you through most of these tools and then these areas. So guys, the next area I'll take you through this sidebar. So that sidebar is this one here that you're seeing. So for this one, what you actually see is first and foremost the number of pages that you have. Or if I told you on a free plan, you can actually create many pages. But if I told you share this specific file with others, you only be limited to 3 specific pages. On top of that, you can also see your assets together with searching. You can also search for something here. So always get to know that. So right here, these are actually tabs. Under the layers tab, we have the pages, assets, and you can also sort of like hide or show the specific pages that you have. So you can also actually rename by double clicking on this specific area for the name of this specific page that you have. Then you can actually create other pages. So that is what happens under this specific area. Once you add something to this specific area, this working area, it will actually appear under here. So let me just create a frame here. So I think you can see I added a frame, and then you can actually also rename this frame together with its name. So that is what happens. So moving on to the next area. The next area I want to take you through is the right menu. So for the right menu is this one right here. So under this right menu, you'll find first and foremost, the first tab is the design tab. So this design tab is where the properties of what you've selected will appear. So as you can see, once I select this frame, its properties will actually appear down here. So the properties of this frame, you can actually see where it is in terms of the Y and the X-axis. So that is actually the specific canvas, the area where this canvas is. So the area where this frame is on the canvas. So together with its dimensions, the width and the height, you can also actually rotate it. So this is the angle at which it's actually rotated. It's at 0. You can also change its corners. You can also, make sure that the content that actually overflows is clipped. You can also add auto layout. You can add the layout grid, which will help you to actually make sure that your components or your elements are all aligned perfectly. You can also fill it using this area. You can change the color of the fill to anything that actually suits you. Moving on, you can also add a stroke. As you can see, you can make sure that this stroke is really big. You can make that's actually really big. 12 is actually better. You can also change the color. Then moving on, you can also add other effects, for example, like a drop shadow, and then lastly, you can also export it. You can download it as a PNG, JPEG, or you can also download it as an SVG. SVG is just a scalable vector graphic. This is like those vector graphics that actually can scale to any specific dimensions to fill specific container. You can also export it as a PDF. But let me actually export this frame as a PNG so that you can see it downloading up there. Export. Yeah, it's been downloaded. So moving on, the next point I want to take you through these main tools in Figma. For example, the frame tool, the pen tool, the fill tool, the rectangle tool. Now, these to me are the main tools because with these tools, you can literally, play around with, the UI elements. Then on top of which you can actually use other tools. I already showed you the frame tool, but anyway, I can actually show it to you. So the frame tool is actually found on this area that we actually called the nav bar. So this is the nav bar, and this is actually the sidebar. So don't actually confuse them. This right here is the nav bar. This is the sidebar. This is the working area, and this right here is the right menu. Guys, for the main tools in Figma, the first tool is the frame tool. So in order to actually create a frame, come right here on the nav bar, and then after this move tool, you will find this tool called the frame tool. The frame tool is just does what its name says. It's for framing. So supposedly you'd want to, for example, create an input box. You first of all have to create a frame. A frame is just a sort of like your canvas that you're going to use to actually paint or draw. So in this instance, you need to actually create a frame. And to do that, just select this specific area for the frame, not section, not slice, but frame. And then find an area, starting area, where you want, for example, to start, indicating your frame. So once you find that area, click, hold, and drag to a size that you want, reasonable size, depending whether you're actually designing for the web, tablet, or maybe the phone. So apart from that, you can also create frames, by adjusting the width. You can adjust the width like this, or you can actually adjust the height like that, and also input a number. And then you can also find other ways to actually create frames, but this is like the most common way. Just click the tool, then drag, and then change the dimensions using these areas here. So apart from that, we also have the pen tool. The pen tool is just after this rectangle tool. So the pen tool and the rectangle tool can also work together to create shapes. But the pen tool is essentially the same pen tool that you find in Illustrator. But this one, you can do things differently that actually requires you to edit this rectangle in a way that you want. For example, in Illustrator, you can't add strokes this way. You can't add multiple strokes on this specific rectangle, and you cannot add multiple fields I think you cannot also dictate whether where your stroke should actually pass. Is it like the center, outside, or inside? So you realize that's what the pen tool does. The pen tool is just that helps you create custom shapes that you'd want to include in your design work. And I don't know which custom tools you can actually include, but you can create and then fill, just like how you can actually do in Illustrator. So you can actually do that, and then you can actually fill. So what a frame does is it doesn't allow you to take objects off of it. I see. Once I try taking this, um, triangle off of this frame, the area that is outside won't be displayed, because what this frame does is to frame these elements that you're using. So moving on, the next tool is the fill tool. I think we've been filling things, so you can actually just create something. For example, just create something off of the canvas, or sorry, the frame, and then I can actually remove these strokes, and then I'll just use this fill tool. Just need to add a fill, and then you can actually add a color code here that you want. You can paste it there, or you can just use this sort of like scroller to kind of pick the color that you want. So that is what the fill tool does. Then the next tool is the rectangle tool. The rectangle tool is actually going to really help you. By the way, not forgetting, once you're done creating a specific shape, you need to actually click on this done button. But I think you can also just be done by clicking outside of that shape like that. Moving on, the rectangle tool is just a rectangle tool. But apart from that, we also have like a line tool, arrow, ellipse, polygon, star, and then the place image or video tool. So the rectangle tool, you just need to draw rectangles like that, like right out of rectangles. You just delete all of these. So to do that, just click on this rectangle tool right here, and then click somewhere, hold, and then drag. You can also actually change the size of this. You can make it a little bit bigger. You can change the height, get a little bit taller. Come here in another fill, change the fill to something else. So this can be like a background that you can use. You can also place your input boxes like this. So a rectangle tool can help you create input boxes. Then you can also remove the fill and also add a stroke instead. You can also change the color of the stroke to make it a little bit light. So you realize that on top of these tools, I will also have like a text tool, which is also really important because the web is full of text. So the text tool just has this T. I think the text tool is actually the same sort of like, it has like the same symbol with that text tool in Adobe Illustrator. So you just click on it and click on somewhere where you want to add text, and then you can add some text. For example, I can add some text here, and this can actually act as a label for our specific input box. So you can have two labels. We paste that, two labels. So I think you can see with just a few tools, we already have something. So moving on, you can actually play around with Figma using this file that I created. So I created a file here called Skiller. It's my sort of like work, so don't fear copying it. It's actually in the community already. So I can actually come, copy, make a copy of this file, and then you can play around with these tools, because I believe you can learn a lot by just using what is already there. So I'm actually improving on these specific. It's mine, but the one I'm failing to edit. But I actually created this work using another account. That's why I can't edit. But regardless, you can once you visit this link, what you can do is you can just make a copy. So I can also actually make a copy from this. So just click here where the name is, and then you just duplicate it to your draft. So once you duplicate it or make a new copy, you will be able to actually have edit access. You have a new copy that you can actually edit and play around. So under this file, actually created sort of like a design style guide that can help you navigate these specific designs. Under these designs, you'll find out that there are so many components that you can actually play around. For example, there are inputs, there are buttons, there are cards, so many designs of cards, different versions. You can come here and play around with these areas so that you can get to know how to actually play around with the rectangles, the text, the color, so that you can actually get to learn more about this specific tool and how you can actually use it. So we have frames, text, rectangles, fills, shades. All of this is in this specific file. So feel free to delete, add, play around with it, depending on how you want to actually start learning. So I think I'll be making another video to go through this specific design so that people can actually learn better. So moving on, the next slide is, you need to actually get to know the design blocks in Figma. So Figma, you can actually use it in different ways. But one of the ways that I would want to actually advise you to use it is, let me just create a new file. So just come here to the logo, and then under file, there's this option for new design file. So I just want to take you through this concept of what the building blocks, or the building blocks of design are, so you can actually get to know them in relation to Figma. The first building block is actually an empty frame. So regardless of how you start designing, or regardless of what you do, you always start with a new file, an empty one. Actually, that's why I actually added this word empty. So you will start with an empty file, and then you will start with a line, because instead of a line, you can also start with a rectangle, but regardless, a rectangle comes from a line. So you realize that with just a simple line, you can come up with multiple elements with just a simple line. For example, you can actually use this line to come up with a rectangle. So you can use this same line by copying it multiple times. You can come up with like a rectangle by scaling down the lines, rotating them a bit. You can come up with like a very different sort of like shape, depending on how on what you want to do. So this shows you that for you to actually come up with like design sort of like outputs or design blocks that you can use to build these experiences, you need to start with an empty frame, a line, and then you can eventually form a component. So a component can actually just have, for example, a rectangle and then some text to sort of like form a component. For example, this can be sort of like a text input component that you can use to sort of like come up with multiple sort of like components to sort of like come up with a login sort of like page, or even sign up page. So this shows you that from an empty frame, you can use lines to come up with elements, and you can use elements to come up with components. For example, actually an element and a component are not that different, because a component can be as simple as an element, and then it can be as complex as an entire sort of like feature that does something to hold other features. So design can actually get that complex, but it all shows that it just starts with a simple line. So moving on, realize that from this, we actually form a page. So eventually, once maybe you add like a button here, actually to create a button, just need a rectangle plus some text again. Are you seeing? So rectangles, text lines, you will never ever escape them once you're designing in Figma. So I just need to, I just need to bring this to a front, and then this can actually be our action actually. So this can be our action. You can actually also select I can actually center them. So on top of this, we can have our heading here. We can have a heading. So you see, we have a page now from a simple sort of like components that we had eventually come up with. So this shows you that design essentially is just made up of these simple building blocks. Moving on, not actually moving on, but concluding, this is how we would want to actually conclude. Don't always actually focus on designing, because designing doesn't actually take time. For example, I've just taken like a few minutes to design this, but it's also something functioning or something worth it, or something that can actually be used to sort of like explain something. So it has like some value per se. So it shows you that although it has value, it doesn't have like the connected bits. It's not really a fully fledged sort of like design to serve like a purpose, like the scalar sort of like design file I showed you in the design, in the Figma community. So I realized that always focus on the bigger picture, so that you always come up with designs quite faster, join them, prototype them, form experiences quite faster, because that is what people actually want. Remember, just so that people don't actually care about the type of design tool you use, but rather the output that you're trying to put forward. So as a designer, always remember that the bigger picture is always the most important bit of it. So moving forward, the next part I would want to take you through before we actually conclude this specific workshop is the book of the week. So the book of the week, since we've been talking about UI UX, since we've been talking about designing in Figma and design in general, the book of the week is called Practical UI by Adam. Yeah, Adam. I don't know if I'm I'm not really good at pronouncing names, but Danaway is the guy that wrote this book, Practical UI. You can actually get this book from Practical UI you can get it from practical-ui.com. So get this book. I've read this book, and this book is going to show you that design comes from making things simple, and this guy shows you that there are simple principles and rules that you can use to design enjoyable UI elements that you can use to create better user experiences. So I advise you to actually go read this book so that you can actually embark on your design journey. So in conclusion, we would want to urge you to stay connected, follow us, Twitter, LinkedIn, so that you always follow our hashtags and don't miss out on anything. We have lots of workshops coming up. We have lots of information regarding this experience design packed for you that you'll be consuming. So I wish that you can follow us, then stay connected, join the community, talk to an expert, and then follow us on all our social media platforms. So thanks for watching, and see you in the next workshop. Bye.